Thank you so much, Angela. I could listen to Angela talk all day long. I also like the BBC, so it's true. I just love it. It's wonderful. I have so much to talk about. Okay, I know I was invited to talk about what's happening in the state legislature, but can I give you an update about some stuff that's happening at the federal level as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. So here are the things I'm going to try and get through in an hour. Is that how much time I have, do you think? About
Is that okay with everyone?
Is an hour okay? If you get bored, just kind of, you know. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the president's speech and what's happening in Congress. I'm going to talk a little about health reform. I want to talk about the Citizens United case, which was the Supreme Court case that was just decided. Then I want to talk a little bit about the clean elections decision and what impact that has for us here in Arizona. I want to briefly mention a little bit about the importance of Terry Goddard, and that'll lead me to the legislature and a discussion about what's happening right now at the legislature, which is not much. And then at the very end, if I can, we'll talk a little about my book and why I wrote it and all that kind of stuff. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't write that down, so if I forget one of the parts, just yell it out. Well, like all of you, I watched the president's speech earlier this week, and one thing that I think is really significant is that in the face of the Massachusetts decision, while many members of the United States Congress and many pundits have been extrapolating their own, quote, lessons from the election in Massachusetts, those same pundits and individuals failed to actually read the exit poll results in Massachusetts, because what we saw from the voters in Massachusetts was that they were not upset that Congress was moving too quickly or overreaching or doing something too broad. They were sick of people not doing anything, and they were tired of the bickering. Overall, as people left the polls in Massachusetts, they said that they wanted health reform, and they wanted it to be like their health reform, which, by the way, the congressional bill is largely modeled after the Massachusetts model, and that they wanted to happen pretty quickly. Unfortunately, we had a candidate who decided to take a month off in a 3-month campaign. My motto is always run like you're losing, even if you don't have an opponent, right? Because maybe one day you will. And it happened to be a guy, you know, who's a former model and worked really hard and drove a truck. And so Massachusetts happened. The truck made a huge difference. I'm in a truck. So after Massachusetts, a number of Democrats went back to Congress. They said, oh my goodness, well, we can't do this. We got to put the brakes on this. We can't do this. We can't do this. What, you know, we just have to scale back. And the president actually took the time to find out what the voters in Massachusetts said they wanted. And the truth is that they want health reform. What they want is health reform that solves their problems and doesn't kowtow to major corporations and to the wealthy. And so the good news is that even before the president's speech on Wednesday, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, on Tuesday indicated that after talking with her caucus that she indeed does still have the votes to pass out a bill with changes that have been negotiated with the Senate. So what does that mean? Well, in the Senate, we no longer have 60 votes. Some would argue that we never had 60 because one of those was Joseph Lieberman. But that's whatever. Yeah, and Nelson too, but really Lieberman. So now there's, I think as the president so eloquently said on Wednesday, there's none of this pressure, this false pressure to get to 60. So what that means is that the Democrats can stop kowtowing to Joe Lieberman and instead seek other avenues to move forward with health reform. And so it's likely that the Senate will move forward with a process called reconciliation, which takes only 51 votes. And by the way, is not unusual. You may recall that before the Democrats took the Senate in 2008, that the Republicans controlled the Senate for quite some time. In fact, since around 1994. They never had 60 votes, and they managed to do a lot of really bad things during that time. So the reconciliation process is still quite available, and we will use it for good rather than for evil. So actually this evening, after leaving all of you, I'm going to drive back to Phoenix and then hop on a plane at midnight to head off to D.C., where I'll be doing some work on health reform over the weekend and into early next week. So so we're moving forward, and the bill will continue to move forward. The negotiations are continuing, and the agreements that had been made between House and Senate leadership in the White House around the holidays are still in play. And so the good news is that health reform will continue to move forward, and we will see significant health reform in this country this year. And yeah, it's great. I, for one, think it can't happen fast enough. You know, I get phone calls and emails and stories in person from folks all around the state on a daily basis about how they're waiting for this reform because they or their child or their mom has a pre-existing health condition and they can't get coverage, they can't get care. Or they had good coverage and then they developed diabetes or heart disease or some other kind of disorder or disease or disability, and all of a sudden they got kicked off their care after they'd been paying into it for many, many years. So, those major reforms, the major reforms are still in the package and will pass. You know, when we were together, was that July or August?
August.
It was hot. I remember that.
Yeah.
It was hot. We were in a small room. There were 1,000 people. It was very hot. I'm really glad it's not hot today. So when we were all together back in August, I think I made the comment at that time, and I still believe this now, that if there's only one thing that we can get out of health reform immediately, it's a ban on discriminating against people with pre-existing conditions. Just that very act alone will revolutionize healthcare in our country. Just that act alone. The good news is we're going to get a lot more than that. Hooray! It's like extra icing on the cake. So that's still moving forward. So that's really good news. The other good news is that there's some major economic reform happening. On December the 17th, the House passed a jobs bill, which has moved into the Senate and is getting a hearing in this coming week in the Senate. And the jobs bill does a couple things. It helps put money into states faster, both into government, local government jobs, and into private sector jobs to help reboost our jobs recession, and especially here in Arizona, where, as you know, we have the most rapid job loss in the country. Now, Michigan still has the highest unemployment rate in the country, but ours is the most rapidly growing unemployment rate in the country. Just a few short years ago, we had unemployment of around 2% or so, and now we're at over 9%. A large part of that is, of course, due to the fact that we were heavily, heavily dependent on growth and tourism, and when the growth bubble burst, Arizona really burst. So Arizona and Nevada are really hurting the worst. So the jobs bill ensures that Arizona will get its fair share of those dollars to help restart and revitalize our economy. The other good news is that the jobs bill has a significant amount of funding to help pay for K-12 education and to help pay for health care. We call that FMAP. Now, this is important because last year, when we were facing a $2.8 billion budget deficit, luckily, on February the 17th, the president signed into law the stimulus package, which is different than the bailout. The stimulus package gave monies directly to Arizona state government to help pay for education and health care, which is why you only saw cuts to the K-12 education system of about $500 million, right? No. Without the stimulus money, there would have been another $1 billion lost out of education. Now, the cuts that we've already seen are the biggest in state's history. The scary thing is that right now, our governor's budget proposal anticipates a $750 million cut from K-12 education because she's not counting on the fact that Congress is moving this jobs bill through. So one of my goals is to help Congress move the jobs bill through quickly in the Senate. We want it to get signed into law by our president before Jan Brewer and the Republicans in the legislature have the chance to devastate education and decimate it. That's important. If they make these cuts before this bill passes and is signed into law, we will lose our eligibility for these dollars. Do you have a question?
I just wondered about cuts to health care for state government.
Yeah, she wants to cut 400,000 people off of health care. I'll get to that. That's like chapter 3 of the story. I'll talk about, that one just, drives me crazy. No, it's no problem.
It's one of my hot buttons.
Yeah. Because you need health care, right, like everyone else in the state. Just a little aside, during the governor's State of the State speech, she said that she wanted people to take personal responsibility for their health care. And I thought that was really interesting, because she's been employed by government for close to 30 years. And so you and I have been paying for her health care. All that